The world just witnessed something extraordinary. Joe Biden, who has remained conspicuously silent while Donald Trump plunged the Middle East into chaos, has finally broken his silence. And what he revealed in a carefully worded statement has sent shockwaves through Washington, Tehran, and Tel Aviv. Biden did not simply criticize Trump's reckless Iran policy. He exposed the catastrophic strategic blunder that has handed Iran its greatest geopolitical victory in decades. While mainstream media focuses on superficial political theater, the real story is what Biden's statement reveals about the complete collapse of American credibility in the Middle East and the irreversible shift in regional power dynamics that Trump's arrogance has accelerated. Before we dive into this devastating analysis, make sure you hit that like button, subscribe to this channel, and turn on notifications, because what you're about to discover is information the establishment desperately wants to suppress. Biden's statement did not emerge in a vacuum. It came precisely 48 hours after Iranian forces demonstrated capabilities that shattered every assumption Washington held about the balance of power in the Persian Gulf. Trump had been boasting about his maximum pressure campaign, threatening military strikes, seizing Iranian vessels, and promising to bring Tehran to its knees. Instead, what happened was a masterclass in strategic patience meeting impulsive arrogance, and Biden just confirmed what the Pentagon already knows, but refuses to admit publicly. Trump's Iran policy has been an unmitigated disaster that has strengthened Iran's position while isolating America from its traditional allies. Let's establish the context that Biden's statement operates within, because understanding the depth of Trump's failure requires appreciating just how thoroughly he has reversed decades of American strategic advantages in the region. When Trump withdrew from the Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action in 2018, the Iran nuclear deal that took years of patient diplomacy to negotiate, he promised that maximum pressure would force Iran into submission within months. He promised that sanctions would cripple the Iranian economy so severely that the regime would either collapse or come begging for negotiations on American terms. He promised that military threats would deter Iranian regional activities and force proxies in Iraq, Syria, Lebanon, and Yemen to abandon Tehran. Every single promise has proven false. 5 years later, Iran has not collapsed. The regime has not begged for negotiations. Regional proxies have grown stronger, not weaker. Iranian missile capabilities have advanced dramatically. Iranian drone technology has proliferated across the resistance axis. Iranian influence in Iraq has deepened despite massive American military presence. Iranian support for Hezbollah remains unwavering despite Israeli strikes. Iranian backing for Yemen's Ansarullah forces continues despite Saudi bombardment and American weapon shipments. And most devastatingly, Iran has demonstrated the ability to strike American assets and allies with precision while maintaining plausible deniability that prevents direct American retaliation. This is the strategic landscape that Biden addressed, and his statement contained coded language that anyone familiar with Washington's bureaucratic communications immediately recognized as devastating critique. Biden began by emphasizing the importance of diplomacy and multilateral cooperation, a direct rebuke of Trump's unilateral abandonment of the nuclear deal and alienation of European allies. He stated that threats of military force without diplomatic off-ramps create dangerous escalation spirals that serve no American interest, a pointed reference to Trump's repeated threats to bomb Iran without any coherent strategy for what comes next. He noted that sanctions only work when they're part of comprehensive strategy that includes incentives for changed behavior, an acknowledgement that Trump's pure punishment approach has failed to modify Iranian conduct. But the most significant element in Biden's statement was what he said about American credibility. He explicitly stated that inconsistent policy, abandoned agreements, and impulsive decision-making have damaged America's reputation as reliable partner. This language is diplomatic speak for saying Trump has destroyed decades of carefully built trust with allies while convincing adversaries that American commitments cannot be trusted. When the former vice president and current political rival says the sitting president has damaged American credibility, that's not partisan politics. That's strategic assessment from someone with access to intelligence briefings and diplomatic back channels that reveal just how badly Trump's Iran adventure has backfired. The timing of Biden's statement deserves examination because it came immediately after a specific incident that exposed the hollowness of Trump's tough guy posturing. Trump had threatened to blockade the Strait of Hormuz if Iran continued what he called provocative behavior in the Persian Gulf. Iranian forces responded by conducting the largest naval exercise in their history, demonstrating swarm tactics using hundreds of fast attack craft, deploying anti-ship missiles along the entire coastline, and showcasing new naval drones capable of autonomous operations. Pentagon analysts watching this display realized something terrifying. If shooting started, American naval vessels in the confined waters of the Persian Gulf would face threats from multiple vectors simultaneously, and the casualty projections were catastrophic. Trump, faced with this reality check from his own military commanders, quietly abandoned the blockade threat. He did not announce this decision. He simply stopped mentioning it, hoping nobody would notice the retreat from his bold declaration. But Tehran noticed. More importantly, America's allies in the region noticed. Saudi Arabia, which had been counting on American protection, suddenly accelerated diplomatic outreach to Iran. The United Arab Emirates, which had joined Trump's maximum pressure campaign, began distancing itself from American positions. Oman, which has always maintained neutral relations, offered to mediate negotiations. Even Israel, Trump's most loyal Middle East partner, began hedging its bets and exploring back-channel communications with Iranian intermediaries. This is the strategic earthquake that Biden's statement addressed without explicitly naming. When Trump threatened action and then failed to follow through, he did not simply lose face, he destroyed deterrence. Every adversary and ally now understands that American threats under Trump are bluster rather than credible commitments. Iran understood this lesson and has exploited it ruthlessly. Iranian forces increased their activities throughout the region following Trump's retreat, secure in the knowledge that his bark lacks bite. Iranian proxies intensified operations knowing Trump would tweet angrily but take no meaningful action. Iranian commanders planned operations with confidence that American retaliation would remain limited regardless of provocation. Biden's reference to multilateral cooperation contains another devastating critique that requires unpacking. When Trump abandoned the nuclear deal, European allies, including France, Germany, and the United Kingdom, tried to salvage the agreement. They created special financial mechanisms to allow trade with Iran despite American sanctions. They publicly opposed Trump's withdrawal and maintained diplomatic channels with Tehran. Trump responded by threatening these allies with secondary sanctions, essentially telling Europe to follow American dictates or face economic punishment. This approach has poisoned transatlantic relations and convinced Europeans that America under Trump cannot be trusted as a reliable partner. The consequences extend far beyond Iran policy. European nations that have been America's closest allies for 70 years are now openly discussing strategic autonomy from Washington. They are building independent military capabilities to reduce dependence on American protection. They are creating alternative financial systems to reduce vulnerability to American sanctions. They are forging direct relationships with China and Russia that exclude American participation. Trump's my way or the highway approach to allies has convinced them to choose other highways, fundamentally undermining the alliance structures that have been foundation of American global power since World War II. Biden understands this because he spent 8 years as vice president managing these relationships. His statement emphasizing multilateral cooperation is not abstract diplomatic language. It's a direct acknowledgement that Trump has shattered alliances that took decades to build and will require years to repair. Every foreign ministry in Europe read Biden's statement and recognized it as validation of their own assessments that Trump's approach has been strategic catastrophe. Every diplomat in Asia, Africa, and Latin America watching American-Iran policy understood that Biden was confirming what they already suspected. American foreign policy under Trump is chaotic, unreliable, and counterproductive. The economic dimension of Trump's Iran failure also features prominently in Biden's critique. Maximum pressure was supposed to devastate Iran's economy so thoroughly that regime change became inevitable, or at least negotiation became necessary. Instead, what happened is Iran adapted. The regime developed what analysts call resistance economy, focusing on domestic production, regional trade networks that bypass dollar-denominated systems, and cryptocurrency mechanisms that evade sanctions monitoring. Iranian oil continues flowing to customers willing to defy American sanctions, particularly China, which needs the energy and enjoys defying Trump. Iranian trade with neighboring countries has actually increased as regional partners seek alternatives to American-dominated supply chains. Meanwhile, the economic costs to America have been substantial and rarely discussed. American companies lost access to Iranian market of 80 million consumers. American agricultural exporters lost lucrative contracts for wheat, soybeans, and other commodities. American energy companies lost opportunities to develop Iranian oil and gas fields. American manufacturers lost sales to competitors from China, Russia, and Turkey who eagerly filled the void created by American sanctions. The economic warfare that Trump promised would punish Iran has actually punished American businesses while strengthening competitors who do not follow Washington's lead. Biden's emphasis on comprehensive strategy implicitly criticizes this approach by highlighting what Trump has ignored. Successful pressure campaigns require both carrots and sticks, both punishment and incentives. Trump offered only punishment, then seemed surprised when Iran refused to surrender. Biden, drawing on decades of foreign policy experience, understands that no nation will negotiate under pure duress without some face-saving incentive that allows them to claim diplomatic victory rather than capitulation. Trump's refusal to offer any positive inducements guaranteed that Iran would choose resistance over submission regardless of economic pain. The military dimension reveals perhaps the most devastating aspect of Trump's failure. Maximum pressure was supposed to deter Iranian regional activities and demonstrate American military dominance. Instead, Iranian capabilities have grown substantially during Trump's term, while American vulnerabilities have been exposed repeatedly. Iran developed new generations of ballistic missiles with improved accuracy and range. Iranian drone programs advanced dramatically, with systems now deployed across Yemen, Iraq, Syria, and Lebanon. Iranian cyber capabilities demonstrated ability to penetrate American and allied systems. Iranian proxy forces gained combat experience and sophisticated weaponry. Simultaneously, American forces discovered their vaunted technological superiority matters less in the type of conflict Iran has prepared to fight. When Iranian-backed forces struck Saudi oil facilities with drones and cruise missiles in 2019, American Patriot missile defense systems completely failed to intercept the attacks despite being specifically designed for this mission and costing billions of dollars. When Iranian missiles struck American base in Iraq in 2020, they demonstrated precision accuracy that shocked Pentagon analysts who had assumed Iranian missiles were crude and inaccurate. When Iranian fast attack craft swarm American vessels in the Persian Gulf, the expensive destroyers and cruisers designed to fight Soviet Navy proved vulnerable to cheap asymmetric tactics. This military reality check explains why Trump's threats increasingly ring hollow. His generals have briefed him on what conflict with Iran would actually entail. Thousands of American casualties in the opening hours, oil prices spiking to economically catastrophic levels, regional bases coming under sustained missile attacks, the Strait of Hormuz closed for months, and ultimately a grinding insurgency that would make Iraq and Afghanistan look like brief skirmishes. No rational leader would choose this outcome, which means Trump's threats to attack Iran are either bluffs or evidence of dangerous irrationality. Either way, they have destroyed American deterrence and credibility. Biden's statement about escalation spirals without diplomatic off-ramps directly addresses this dangerous dynamic. When leaders make threats they cannot or will not carry out, they do not project strength, they reveal weakness. When nations bluff and get called, they lose credibility that takes decades to rebuild. Trump has bluffed repeatedly on Iran, threatening military action, then backing down when Iran calls his bluff by escalating rather than surrendering. Each cycle of threat and retreat diminishes American power while emboldening Iranian confidence. This is textbook case of how not to conduct foreign policy, and Biden's statement makes clear that he recognizes the strategic disaster Trump has created. The broader geopolitical implications extend far beyond Iran. The entire world watches how America handles challenges and draws conclusions about American resolve, capability, and reliability. When Trump threatens North Korea, then meets Kim Jong-un without achieving any denuclearization, potential proliferators learn that nuclear weapons provide protection from American pressure. When Trump abandons Kurdish allies in Syria, partners worldwide reconsider whether American commitments can be trusted. When Trump tears up Iran deal, every nation negotiating with Washington wonders whether agreements will survive the next administration. When Trump threatens Venezuela, then takes no action, authoritarians learn his bark lacks bite. Biden understands these dynamics because he has spent decades navigating international relations. His statement is not simply about Iran policy in isolation. It's about the cumulative damage Trump has inflicted on American global position. Every element of Biden's critique, from emphasis on alliances to multilateral cooperation to diplomatic off-ramps, represents fundamental principles of statecraft that Trump has violated repeatedly. The contrast between Biden's measured diplomatic language and Trump's bombastic tweets could not be more stark, and the contrast itself serves as indictment of Trump's approach. The domestic political dimension also deserves examination because Biden's statement serves multiple audiences simultaneously. For Democratic primary voters, it establishes Biden as foreign policy adult in the room, the experienced statesman who can repair damage Trump has caused. For general election voters concerned about Trump's erratic behavior, it provides concrete example of how Trump's impulsiveness creates real dangers. For foreign audiences, it signals that American foreign policy could return to predictability and reliability after Trump. For Iranian leaders, it hints at possible negotiation pathway if Trump loses election. This multi-layered communication strategy reflects sophisticated understanding of how foreign policy statements operate in interconnected global media environment. Biden is not simply criticizing Trump for domestic political advantage, although that's certainly part of the calculation. He is also signaling to allies that help is potentially coming, warning adversaries not to make irreversible moves during Trump's remaining time, and laying groundwork for diplomatic initiatives should he win presidency. The statement serves immediate political needs while also attempting to limit damage Trump can cause in the interim. The historical parallels provide context for understanding the significance of Biden's intervention. It is extremely rare for former senior officials to criticize sitting presidents' foreign policy publicly unless they believe genuine national security dangers exist. Biden served as vice president under Obama and maintains relationships throughout national security establishment. His decision to speak out publicly about Trump's Iran policy suggests consensus within that establishment that Trump's approach has become genuinely dangerous. When someone with Biden's credentials and access to classified briefings makes public statement criticizing president's foreign policy, it carries weight far beyond typical political criticism. As we move toward conclusion, the implications of Biden's statement become clear. Trump's Iran policy has been comprehensive failure that has strengthened Iranian position, damaged American credibility, alienated allies, wasted resources, and created dangerous escalation risk. Biden's statement confirms what many analysts have argued for years, but what mainstream media has been reluctant to acknowledge. Maximum pressure has achieved maximum failure. Iran has not capitulated. American influence has diminished. Regional dynamics have shifted against Washington, and the strategic disaster continues unfolding in real time as Trump's impulsiveness collides with Iranian patience and calculation. The choice facing American voters in upcoming elections could not be more consequential for Middle East stability and American global position. Biden represents return to traditional foreign policy, emphasizing diplomacy, alliances, and strategic patience. Trump represents continuation of impulsive threats, abandoned agreements, and maximum pressure approach that has demonstrably failed. The Iranian challenge will not disappear regardless of who wins, but the approach to managing that challenge will differ fundamentally based on electoral outcome. Biden's statement makes this choice explicit and frames the stakes clearly for voters to understand. What mainstream media will not tell you is that Biden's critique represents consensus view within American foreign policy establishment across partisan lines. Republican former officials who served under Bush and Reagan have made similar criticisms of Trump's Iran policy policy, though more quietly to avoid political backlash. Military commanders have expressed concerns in classified briefings, even while maintaining public loyalty. Intelligence analysts have warned that Trump's approach is counterproductive, even as politicians ignore their assessments. Biden is simply stating publicly what many within the system have been saying privately. Trump's Iran policy is strategic disaster that has damaged American interests and empowered Iranian adversaries. The path forward remains uncertain, but the lessons are clear. Maximum pressure without diplomatic engagement creates escalation spirals that serve no one's interest. Threats without willingness to follow through destroy credibility rather than establishing it. Abandoning agreements convinces potential partners that American commitments are worthless. Alienating allies leaves America isolated and vulnerable. Impulsive leadership creates chaos that adversaries exploit. These lessons apply far beyond Iran to every foreign policy challenge America faces, and voters ignore them at their peril. This is the moment where you need to take action. If this analysis has opened your eyes to what's really happening behind the mainstream media narrative, hit that like button right now. Subscribe to this channel because we're going to continue exposing the truth about American foreign policy disasters that establishment media refuses to acknowledge. Share this video with everyone who needs to understand how Trump's arrogance and incompetence have handed strategic victory to Iranian resistance. Comment below with your thoughts on Biden's statement and what it reveals about the collapse of American credibility. And most importantly, turn on notifications so you never miss our next video exposing the truth about Middle East geopolitics that Washington desperately wants hidden. We're building a community of informed viewers who refuse to accept establishment propaganda, and your engagement is what makes this channel possible. Together, we're creating alternative media space where truth matters more than political convenience. Don't let them silence us. Like, subscribe, share, and join the resistance against mainstream deception.